My name is Beatrice Albright, and at 32 years old, I considered myself a pretty reasonable person. I lived in a cozy little bungalow in Asheville, North Carolina, a city known for its artsy vibe and laid-back atmosphere. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, which gave me the flexibility to enjoy the city's many breweries, hiking trails, and quirky shops. Life was good, peaceful even, until Mr. Entitled moved in next door. Our problems started subtly. He was an arrogant guy, barely in his mid-20s, probably close to 6 foot tall, and annoyingly handsome in that way that some men just naturally are. He seemed to think the world revolved around him and that rules were merely suggestions. The first time he blocked my driveway, I figured it was a mistake. I left a polite note on his windshield. "Hey there, just a friendly reminder to please not block the driveway. Thanks." I thought that would be the end of it. I was so very wrong. It happened again a few days later, and then again the week after that. Each time I tried escalating my approach. First, more notes, each a little less friendly than the last. Then came the awkward in-person conversations. "Hey man, seriously, you can't keep doing this. I need to be able to get my car out." His response was always the same, infuriatingly casual. "I'm just here for a bit." A bit in his world apparently translated to 3 to 5 hours, trapping me in my own house. It wasn't just the inconvenience, it was the principle of the thing, the utter disrespect. He clearly didn't care about my time, my needs, or my simple request to not be imprisoned in my own home. I started feeling a simmering resentment every time I saw his shiny, obnoxious silver sedan parked across my driveway. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, held hostage by his inconsiderate parking habits. I fantasized about keying his car, letting the air out of his tires, or even having it towed. I held back, reminding myself that I was a reasonable person. But my patience was wearing thin. One Tuesday evening, I was returning home from a grocery run, and there it was again, that silver menace blocking my driveway. I saw him through his living room window, preening in front of the mirror. Cologne was being sprayed with abandon. Hair was being meticulously styled. He was clearly getting ready for a date. That was it. Something inside me snapped. The weeks of frustration, the ignored notes, the dismissive attitude all coalesced into a single burning desire for revenge. Tonight was the night. I marched back to my car, pulled out my phone, and called the local towing company. I gave them my address, described the car, and emphasized that it was illegally blocking my driveway. No more warnings, no more notes, just sweet, sweet justice in the form of a tow truck. The dispatcher assured me that a truck would be there within the hour. A wave of giddy anticipation washed over me as I imagined the look on his face when he realized his car was gone. I decided to set up a stakeout on my front porch. I grabbed a beer, settled into a rocking chair, and waited. About 45 minutes later, a woman appeared at the end of the sidewalk. She was dressed to the nines, clearly ready for a night out. She walked up to his door and knocked. Answered, a wide, cheesy smile plastered on his face. He stepped outside, and that's when he saw it. Or rather, didn't see it. His car was gone, his smile vanished, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. He started looking around frantically like he had been robbed. His date stood there, confused and increasingly awkward. This was better than I could have ever hoped for. Summoning my best innocent voice, I called out, "Looking for something." He whipped around, his face a mask of anger and confusion. "Where's my car?" he demanded. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my beer before answering. "Oh, it got towed. You were blocking my driveway again." His jaw dropped. He sputtered, trying to form a coherent argument, but I cut him off. "You've been warned countless times. I left notes, I talked to you in person. I tried to be reasonable, but you clearly don't respect me or my property. So I took matters into my own hands." His date, who had been silently observing the entire exchange, finally spoke up. "Wait, you parked in front of his driveway." He tried to explain, to justify his actions, but she wasn't having it. "Wow," she said, shaking her head in disgust. "That's trash." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving him standing there, speechless and carless. I watched as his face crumpled, his arrogance replaced by a look of utter humiliation. It was a beautiful sight. I savored every moment. I knew that the cost to get his car out of impound would be hefty, and the humiliation of being ditched by his date in front of his neighbor would be even more painful. As I sat there on my porch, finishing my beer, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. Justice had been served. In the days that followed, I noticed a distinct change in my neighbor. He was quieter, less cocky. He avoided eye contact with me, and most importantly, he never blocked my driveway again. I also noticed that he didn't seem to be bringing any dates home. It was as if his confidence had been completely shattered. While I hadn't intended to ruin his love life, I couldn't say I was entirely unhappy about it. Weeks turned into months, and life returned to normal. The driveway drama became a distant memory. I almost felt a little bad for him, seeing him looking so deflated. Almost. Then, one afternoon, I received a notice from the Homeowners Association. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint about my overgrown hedges, claiming they were a violation of the neighborhood's landscaping rules. I knew immediately who was behind it. It was petty, childish, and exactly the kind of passive-aggressive move I would expect from my bruised neighbor. My hedges were perfectly fine. In fact, they provided a nice bit of privacy and were home to a variety of birds and butterflies. This was clearly retaliation for the towing incident. My initial reaction was anger. I wanted to confront him, to give him a piece of my mind. But then, I had an idea. I decided to fight fire with fire, but this time, I would be even more strategic. I did some research on the Homeowners Association bylaws. It turned out that there were several other violations in the neighborhood, including a dilapidated shed in my neighbor's backyard and several other infractions. I documented everything with photos and submitted a detailed list of complaints to the Homeowners Association. The association, obligated to investigate, sent out notices to all the violators, including my neighbor. He was forced to repair his shed, trim his trees, and generally clean up his property. The look on his face when he received the notice was priceless. It was a look of utter defeat. But I wasn't done yet. I knew that he had a prized collection of vintage action figures displayed in his living room window. I also knew that he was incredibly proud of them. One evening, I waited until he left for work. Then, I snuck into his yard and carefully aimed a garden sprinkler at his living room window. I set the timer for an hour and turned on the water. The sprinkler sprayed a steady stream of water directly onto his window, slowly but surely seeping into the frame and onto his precious action figures. I imagined the water damage, the fading colors, the ruined collectibles. It was a slow, deliberate act of revenge designed to inflict maximum emotional pain. The next day, I watched as he frantically tried to dry his action figures, his face a mask of despair. He knew without a doubt that I was behind it, but he couldn't prove anything. I had covered my tracks perfectly. From that day forward, he never bothered me again. He seemed to have finally learned his lesson. I had won. But as the weeks passed, I started to feel a little empty. My initial satisfaction had faded, replaced by a sense of unease. Had I gone too far? Was this petty feud really worth all the effort and energy? I had become so consumed by revenge that I had lost sight of who I was. I had stooped to his level, engaging in childish pranks and passive-aggressive behavior. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sunset, when I saw my neighbor walking down the street. He looked tired, defeated. I felt a pang of guilt. I realized that I had allowed his behavior to consume me, to change me into someone I didn't like. It was time to put an end to this. I walked over to him. "Hey," I said. He looked at me warily. "Can we talk?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. We sat down on the steps of my porch, and I began to apologize. I told him that I had been wrong to let his parking habits get to me, that I had overreacted, and that I was sorry for the sprinkler incident and the complaints I filed with the Homeowners Association. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he took a deep breath and said, "I was a jerk, I know that. I was inconsiderate and I deserved what I got, but you didn't have to ruin my action figures." I sighed. "I know, I'm sorry. It was a stupid thing to do." We sat there for a few moments in silence. Then he said, "So, what do we do now?" I smiled. "We start over, we try to be good neighbors, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to get along." He nodded. "I'd like that," he said. From that day forward, we made an effort to be civil to each other. We waved hello, we helped each other with yard work, and we even shared a beer or two on the porch. We weren't exactly friends, but we were no longer enemies. I learned a valuable lesson from this whole experience. Revenge may feel good in the moment, but it's ultimately a destructive force. It consumes you, changes you, and leaves you feeling empty. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is liberating. It allows you to move on, to let go of the anger and resentment, and to find peace. As for my neighbor, he eventually moved away. I heard through the grapevine that he had gotten married and started a family. I hope he learned his lesson too. As for me, I'm still living in my cozy little bungalow in Asheville, enjoying the peace and quiet. And I always make sure to park my car in my own driveway.